Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 8, and this is going to be my review for episode 16 for this season, otherwise entitled The Curious Case of Bartholomew Allen. And once again, it's an interlude episode, which we go into thinking, hey, this is a filler episode, and then it's really not. It's incredibly relevant to stuff going forward, and so does the next episode. Why are these called interlude episodes? I'll never know. But anyway, spoiler alert for everything, because we're going to go over this entire episode, including the, I guess, misrepresentation of how they set this episode up, saying, hey, it's going to be comedic, and then I almost cried. But anyway, just spoiler alert, because we're going to go over everything. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts, theories, predictions, reactions to this episode. Always curious to read what you guys are thinking, especially where you think things might go going forward, especially based off a certain ending to this episode, which 100% caught me off guard. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, you enjoyed the episode and want to show your support for the channel, why not drop a like on the video? It takes 2 seconds. So last episode was, of course, the Into the Still Force episode, which once again was labeled an interlude episode, but was incredibly relevant. So Iris is gone. She disappeared at the end of episode 14. Barry gets taken into the Still Force by Dion, the avatar of the Still Force, gets backstabbed by Dion as he retrieves that, I guess, the particle thing that he put within Iris, or another piece of the particle, I'm not too sure. Nora is brought in by Dion, funnily enough, to help get Barry out. And then right at the end of the episode, we also had someone hack into Chester's computer files and download them. Now, overall, this episode, it felt like a season 1 episode. I put that on Twitter, and I thought, is this a hot take? But everyone seemed to agree with me. It's like, yeah, this feels like a season 1 type episode that you would have gone outside of that Reverse Flash storyline or something like that. It really had that season 1 feel in regards to how characters interacted, Barry himself, just the tone and stuff. It just felt like season 1. And as I said before, we got a bit of a misrepresentation or false advertising in regards to what the tone of this episode was going to be, because they said, hey, it's a bit of a funny one. And yeah, they had like a gag scene with Barry trying to learn his powers or use them, but that was really the only comedic part. There was probably more emotional bits in this episode. I'd say there's probably like 2 or 3 emotional bits that I think if anyone welled up at them, I wouldn't blame them. Actually, I guess the scene towards the end was pretty funny as well, and I will mention that. But yeah, I think it was more emotional than comedic, but if you wanted to say it was a bit of a mix, then that's fair enough. But even straight out of the gate, let's get into the actual breakdown of this episode. The opening was where that season 1 feel just came and slapped you across the face, with Barry going about his daily life as the Flash, stopping crime after crime, even the typical or stereotypical or cliche, saving of an elderly lady while she's crossing the street, and thanking the Flash. I thought she was going to give him like a penny or a quarter or something like that, but it wasn't even that. It was some butterscotch candy, which, I think that was pretty fitting. And we learned that this rush from Chester over the intercom wasn't because of all these crimes or because, like, I don't know, Zoom's back in town, he needs to deal with that, but it was to get back to Joe's house for his turn in a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And they actually, I think Eric Wallace had teased, like, I don't know, it was earlier, maybe it might have been after Armageddon or before the season started, that all this talk about Dungeons and Dragons, you actually see them playing it, and we actually get to see them playing it at the beginning of this episode and also towards the end. But, when they're playing it towards the beginning, Joe just seems as confused as he has ever been. But there is more to just this D&D confusion for Joe, as the whole issue with Iris is still sitting in the back of his head as well at this time, and also we learn of some other issues that he's going through later in the episode as well, which we'll get to. But Barry is called into CCPD, but it isn't by Kramer, but it's by Singh, and I loved Singh in this episode. It was cool to see him come back, have this chat with Barry, and also what he did with Joe. Of course, he is Chief Singh now, not Captain Singh. Chief Singh, because Kramer's now Captain. And he has come to Barry due to the theft of this gamma absorption device thing from Mercury Labs. And Barry is able to get the research done pretty quickly into it because, well, he is the Flash. But Barry is ended up, caught in this trap as the device is let off right next to him after this thief reveals himself to Barry. Now, upon inspection, we learn that Barry's cells have decayed at this crazy rate, with him aging, I think it was 30 years or over 30 years overnight, something like that. Though for now, it's all internal. So externally, Barry looks the same, but his organs, his bones, he's cracking here and there. they're the things that are, feeling the effects of this shockwave that hit Barry and started to age him pretty rapidly. But of course, due to all of this, his powers are an issue as well. Now, it was cool seeing Barry testing his powers and sort of failing. It was a bit of comedic, but it was also like season 1 when he was initially learning these powers, though he can still run if he keeps it. I think it was under Mach 10. I think that's what they said, is like if it's under 10, I think it was, then he can still use his powers, or at least that's what they think. He can, like, he doesn't seem to get too tired when he's running at that speed. But yeah, that scene was definitely the comedic, or the major comedic part they're talking about. Even the bit where he's like spinning his arms and there was no tornadoes coming out. It reminds me of like that video that always goes around when they're filming the first Flash Supergirl crossover, and it was like what superheroes look like when they don't have like CGI or VFX, and it's Barry like spinning his arms. It looked like that because they didn't put any wind or anything like that on top of it. Now, one thing I thought was weird was when Cecile said that Allegra can hold her own out in the field, when I was like, no, I think that's sort of the opposite. I think we literally got an example of that in episode 14, like not good on the field at all. Now, could she improve? Yeah, and I think next episode will showcase that, I guess in some way, maybe, not too sure. They tease it at the end of this episode as well. But yeah, that was like just saying something without showing it, which I hate. But yeah, that was probably the scene I disliked the most in the episode. It was probably the only scene I actually did dislike, or the only part of the episode I did dislike, because it was just silly, and I don't think anyone watching actually believed it. Now, we do get a reading or a tracking on Barry's attacker. Once again, I think it was at Mercury Labs again, I'm pretty sure, with Barry arriving and trying to use his powers as he would. But of course, it's not the same. There's no lightning throw this time, which he tries to do. And Barry is hit with sort of like a energy grenade or something like that. So that's a complete fail. Did see some people complain that he should have moved, but I think that was like a radiation sort of thing, which I'm pretty sure his speed can't his speed can't affect or something like that. I might be getting to like technological terms that I might be wrong with, but for some reason that just seems to sit in the back of my head. But regardless, Barry is now starting to show more issues than we'll have before, including externally. All this stuff was internal, as we said before. Now it's external. So he's getting nearsighted. So these are the effects of his age. And we're also getting some grey streaks on the side of his hair. Now, I was wondering if like the longer we got into the episode, the more grey Barry's hair was. But we just had sort of like some pepper streaks going through the hair, which I was fine with. You know, we know that he's going to age slower anyway compared to a regular person. But I think like at that point, there was another 10 years added on to that original 30. So Barry at this point is technically 70, but I guess externally, maybe he's only 40. I don't know what the actual technical things would be, but yeah, he's got to act quick because he's aging pretty quickly. And we learned that this extra 10 years was added on, because he's been tapping into the Speed Force and it's accelerating the decay. But due to Barry intervening the second time via using his speed, which ended up with this 10 years added on, we actually learned that this person that has messed up Barry is someone called Dr. Orloff, which pushes them in the right direction in regards to, stopping him later in the episode. And he actually is someone from the Flash comics. Minor character, I think it's either from the early 90s or late 80s, but he is someone from the comics. Now, Joe does continue his struggle and frustration like we saw earlier in the episode, but Singh does drop by to get Joe moving and focusing on other things. And I actually really liked, if not loved, the parallel they did in this episode with this issue that Barry is going through, as well as what Joe is dealing with as well. It's almost like a race against the clock and going against the norm, or not wanting to go against the norm. And Singh's talk about the great man that Joe was and all the great stuff he's done and the great stuff that he can continue to do and the great man that he can continue to be. That scene was great and that talk was great. And I just really enjoyed having Singh back in the way that he was brought back. Now, Barry and Cecile head out to investigate Orloff, via the car. No running for Barry this time. We're taking an automobile. But the computer they find has a hard drive, wipe feature, if it's not, I guess, Orloff using the computer. And this requires Barry to speed off to Chester. But they end up at the Great Wall of China of all places because Barry's all over the place. And Barry's brain is starting to feel the impact of this gamma shockwave. He's starting to forget things and just not remember what certain things are, minor details and stuff like that. And Barry is starting to feel the effects, I guess, of Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. The issue now being that the next time that Barry pushes himself to that level of speed again, he could die. It could push him over the edge and he could die. Now, Barry wants to head to the Star Labs archive to potentially find something that they could use, but he gets lost within the halls of Star Labs as he forgets where he is, or forgets where it is as well, with Cecile taking Barry to dive into why Barry is going about things in this way and being as stubborn as he is. And this chat and the way that Barry describes how he feels, it would hit hard for anyone that has dealt with something like this with a grandparent, a parent, just an older loved one or something like that. Grant Gustin smashed this scene. He was amazing. This was arguably Cecile's best episode in a while, if not ever. Like, I'm trying to go off top of my head. Probably when like Joe wasn't on the show, remember when Jesse and Martin had to leave and they pretty much gave Joe's dialogue to Cecile. Those are the only episodes which would contend with this one, I'm pretty sure. But I must say, this whole situation and this scene in particular, for anyone that's had to deal with, a loved one, like a grandparent who's gone through something like this would have hit hard because, as I said, Grant smashed that scene and just that talk between Grant and Danielle Nicolette, but Barry and Cecile, I thought was great. This scene, even though I'd say I'm quote unquote lucky enough that I haven't gone through something like that with a loved one or a grandparent or anything like that at this point in my life, it even made me well up at the thought of it. So for someone that's actually maybe gone through that, I'm sure that scene would have hit a bit harder than you expected going into this episode. Now, Chester is able to get into Orloff's file, and he is pretty much making a technological fountain of youth. That's pretty much the way it was described, and it is already working thanks to some run-ins with Barry. We see Orloff what he was before and how he is now. He's no grey hair, less wrinkles. He's definitely looking younger, and he now has an amplifier, which, if he succeeds, with it, will impact all of Central City, make them age at a rapid rate, all the citizens there, and he will become immortal himself. So yeah, not great, definitely something you want to try and stop. Now, the plan that Barry and Team Flash came up with is to overload the amplifier to the point in which it won't be able to function, with Barry offering himself up as this over-the-top power source. And we do see that Barry is struggling as soon as he gets there, like, heavy breathing, can't really stand up. He's like, hey, got some Gatorade, need to replenish the electrolytes. But Barry has to act quick when Dr. Orloff lets off this machine, and Barry pushes himself to overload this machine, and we actually see Barry get old, and the VFX they did on him were pretty good. That whole scene was actually done really well in regards to the VFX side of things. And at one point on in Star Labs, they said he gets well over 100 years old. With Orloff actually ended up returning to his old, literal self. He goes back to looking much older than he has been for most of this episode. Now, due to Orloff going back to his old self and having all that power that he'd taken away, we learn that Barry, due to reversing the gamma machine, has not only returned to his regular age, but I think it was 1 or 2 extra years, so Barry can still claim that he's in his 20s. He's only 29, but hey, still in your 20s, you can still claim it even if it's only for a short amount of time. Now, we had Allegra talking to Singh because Singh learns that she's a metahuman, and he's asking hey, what's your name, your code name? Barry was the Streak and now he's the Flash and everything like that. And I think this is probably setting up Allegra getting a code name next episode. I think we take a week off, so there's no episode next week, I think. And I'll confirm that in my trailer breakdown whenever that comes out over the next, 12 to 18 hours or something for when you're watching this video. But yeah, it seems like Allegra's going to get a code name next episode. No clue what it's going to be. Ultraviolet's already taken. That's what her power base is. So Violet Ultra? I don't know what they're going to do. But we see Joe fully embracing the Dungeons and Dragons, looking like Gandalf the Drippy. That's probably the best way I would put it. I was thinking Gandalf the Swag, but for some reason I think Gandalf the Drip or Gandalf. Actually, is Gandalf the Swag? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Gandalf the Swag, Gandalf the Drippy, or do you have another option? Those are my 2 options. I'm going to go with Gandalf the Drippy. I think that's probably the best way to put it, but he's fully embracing that. Now, this end scene, this end credits thing, caught me off guard in more ways than one because I wasn't expecting it. I thought we were going to get a tease for next episode, and specifically the main stuff going on, maybe with Allegra, but Barry gets this call from Caitlin's mother, Carla Tannhauser, who, of course, Barry thought Caitlin was staying with. That was just the information that was out there. With Barry rushing to Caitlin's, He gets there, there's like all this like shuffling inside, he can hear it, so he goes in. I don't know, you could argue a bit rude. What if Caitlin was getting changed? I don't know. Bit rude, Barry. Maybe should have waited a bit more, maybe tried to ring Caitlin or something. I'm not too sure. But of course, he gets in there and he gets the shock of what Caitlin has been up to since the death of Frost. And we see that Caitlin has the mirror gun and wants to replicate what happened last time, back in, I guess, the beginning of season 7 or end of season 6, and taking that tiny slice of Frost that is left within her to do the same thing. And Caitlin obviously goes a bit far and starts to push Barry that, like, what if he could bring back his mother or bring back his father and everything like that. With Barry, trying to give Caitlin the reality check that Frost is gone. And, like, that's all the stages of grief. It's about, like, denying it and accepting it, or, eventually accepting it and everything like that. And this is just something that she has to accept. Frost is gone. She unfortunately passed away. Everyone's gone through it on this team. But we actually see Barry just take things into his own hands, and he uses his powers to destroy all of Caitlin's work so far. That was a cool scene, like seeing like Barry's eyes, and you can see Barry sort of like really emotional when he does it. He's like, it's just, he knows, well, at least he thinks that's the thing he has to do to allow Caitlin not to be swamped in all of this. But Caitlin is clearly not happy with all of this. And this makes me wonder, did Barry just, in this, I guess you could argue, form of betrayal, if you want to say, in Caitlin's eyes, it would be betrayal. Did Barry just, I guess, like push Caitlin to maybe do something else? Like maybe become Killer Frost herself again? Is this the point in which Caitlin, just through to her grief and everything like that, is pushed in this direction? Because we know that Danielle Panabaker said in an interview that once we get to the finale for this season and how this season ends, you know exactly where Caitlin is going as a character in season 9. We've only got 4 more episodes. And Danielle Panabaker directed next episode 17. So she's not even going to be in that episode, I don't think. So I guess in these final 2 or 3 episodes for the season after the next episode, we'll see even maybe more breadcrumbs or seed planting. But did Barry just potentially push Caitlin to becoming Killer Frost herself? What the hell? I wasn't expecting that. But now that's all I can think about, because what's Caitlin's next step in this? To me, it seems like that maybe that's where they're going. Oh, I don't know. It's going to be, I'm very, very curious now more than ever to see where they're going with this, because that caught me off guard in more ways than one. But yeah, this episode was fun as hell and also very emotional as well. As I said, the only bit I was like, oh, you rolled your eyes at was the bit where Cecile said Allegra can handle herself out in the field, which we have not seen at this point in time. So yeah, I was sort of like, I'm not too sure about going into this episode, but not sure about this episode going into it. It looked a bit fun, but also could have been silly. But now this gives me more faith in the next episode, which the trailer I did see is making it look like it's a Barry Flash episode, but they've said it's like the main story is Allegra. So don't let that trailer sort of confuse you. But yeah, this episode itself, just based off this, I enjoyed the hell out of it, and now I'm just asking myself even more questions. And also, is it Gandalf the Drippy or is it Gandalf the Swag? You got to let me know. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about this episode, what you love, what you hate, any theories, predictions. Do you think Killer Frost is coming back? What do you think of that end credit scene or end tag scene, whatever you want to call it? If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it to show support. If you enjoyed the episode, drop a like on it as well. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.